Hey guys. We are up to chapter 17. There are only 20 chapters in this book, so we are getting close to the end. And Poppy just discovered that this would be a perfect place for her family to move, especially with the fake owl that would be protecting them. Chapter 17 is called A Surprising Conversation. Poppy woke refreshed. For a moment, she just lay still. She imagined telling her family what a phony Mr. Oacax was. What a delicious moment. Yes, it was time to return home. Realizing that she was very hungry, Poppy first treated herself to a big meal, eating only the plumpest corn kernels. Hadn't she deserved them? Gradually, she ate her way over to the dirt road that ran alongside Dimwood Forest. With her mouth full and her belly tight, she gazed across at the wall of pine and fir. She had feared it before, but now, knowing it, she recalled only its dark beauty. The forest made her think of Aerith and her promise. How was she going to get him the salt? She still had no idea. Then and there she vowed that once she got home, she would return, maybe this time with her cousin Basil, and maybe the two of them could find a way. Poppy thought about Mr. Oacax too. Wouldn't it be fun to tell him what she had discovered? The image of it made her grin. The liar! The bully! It was while she was thinking about him that she spied him. Mr. Oacax was perched deep within the foliage on a small tree right by the edge of the forest. If it had not been for the slanting rays of the sun, Poppy might never have noticed. It was the light of his glowing eyes that caught her attention. Poppy crept forward. When she came near the row of corn closest to the forest, she looked up again. A moody Mr. Oacax was staring at the barn across the field. He kept moving his head about, back, forward, side to side, hissing and clacking his beak. Sometimes his black talons kneaded the branch with nervous tension. At other times he ruffled his feathers, lifted his wings, let his head sink lower. Poppy could tell he was miserable, sulking. She had to marvel at how different he appeared from the time she'd seen him on his watching tree in the rain. All that glaring and hissing. He's just a scared bully, she said to herself. She had to slap a paw over her mouth to keep from laughing out loud. What fun it would be to humiliate him, and just the idea of it brought a feeling of power. Unable to resist teasing him, she called out, "Mr. Oacax!" Uh-oh. There he is. Think that was a good idea? Oh boy. Mr. Oacax! The owl, taken by surprise, looked up, down, and around. "Here!" Poppy cried. "In the corn! It's me, Poppy!" Mr. Oacax hunched over and peered in her direction. "Show yourself," he said harshly. "No, I'll stay where I am, thank you," Poppy returned. Wedged in as she was among the corn stalks, she felt totally secure. She knew he could not reach her there. "Mr. Oacax," she called, "is it the owl on that barn you're looking at?" "What's it to you?" he growled. "You're frightened of it, aren't you?" Poppy said. Mr. Oacax opened his beak, but no sound came out. Instead, he kept peering into the corn. Poppy said, "It's awful to be frightened, isn't it?" "What'd you say?" "I said it's not fun being frightened, is it?" To this, Mr. Oacax said nothing. "I could tell you a little something about that owl," Poppy called, feeling altogether giddy with her knowledge. "What is that something?" the owl asked. "Want to talk about it?" Poppy offered. "Well, I might as well say it to you, because I'm going to tell my family." Mr. Oacax shifted uncomfortably on his perch. "I'll talk," he said. Then he added, "but we could talk more easily if I could see you." To Poppy's ears, the owl's tone had shifted. It was not nearly as angry as it had been. Was she just imagining that? Should she trust him? But even as she asked herself that question, she thought, oh, the look on his face when I tell him that that bird he's so frightened of is nothing but a fake. Aloud she called, "Would you really like to talk about it with me?" "Yes, I would," replied Mr. Oakhacks. "You seem to be a very smart mouse." Poppy blushed. No one had ever called her smart before. This, she had to admit, was a very different side to Mr. Oakhacks from what she had known. Ragweed, in his way, had challenged him. As for her father, he had been very timid in his approach. Perhaps the owl would respect someone who stood up to him politely but firmly. "Do you really think I'm smart?" she inquired. "I certainly do," the owl said. "Well, perhaps the two of us should just sit down and talk. The two smart ones," said Mr. Oakhacks. "Maybe we can work something out." Poppy felt a stirring of excitement. Here she was, Poppy, talking in a perfectly reasonable way with the great Mr. Oakhacks. It was she, with her new knowledge, who had gained the power. Perhaps instead of humiliating him, she could work things out reasonably so the mice could move to New House. Wouldn't that be a trophy to bring home? So thinking, she moved from her hiding place just a little bit onto the dirt road. "Yes," Mr. Oakhacks said soothingly, "let the two of us talk things over. I think we could find some reasonable solutions." "All right," said Poppy. Boldly, she stepped farther out on the road. What is she doing? She looked up. Mr. Oakhacks was gone. "Where are you?" she cried. And at that moment, the owl plunged down upon her from behind. Oh, that's the end of chapter 17. Oh, no. Oh, that's it, guys. What is going to happen to poor Poppy? She was getting a little bit too brave, and she started making some mistakes, and the owl is trying to trick her. Oh, all right, find out next time. The next chapter is called The Battle. Oh, it's so good.